Welcome to Math with Miss Garrity. This little video is going to describe how you can divide with radical expressions. Dividing with radical expressions, the index of each radical must be the same. If the indices of each radical is the same, then we can divide. A property of radicals says that if you have one radical sign in the numerator and one in the denominator, you can combine those two radicands under one radical sign. So that would be one way to think about dividing radical 10 by radical 2, is you could think of it as taking the radical of the single fraction 10 over 2, and that is the same as the square root of 5, or radical 5. So there's one example of dividing with radical expressions. Another one is if you have the exact same radical term being divided by itself. Same idea as up front. First one, that equals 1. If you have a situation where you have radicands that don't have any factors in common, we need to simplify this entire fraction because we are not allowed to have radicals in the denominator. So it's a division problem technically. So we have to make sure that denominator does not have any radical sign in it at all. So what we can do is we can multiply by the number 1, and when you have radical 3 times itself, well, radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9, which is equivalent to 3. So by multiplying the denominator by itself, you get rid of the radical sign. But then in the numerator, we would end up with radical 24, radical 24. Now 24 has factors of 4 and 6. So the square root of 24 is equivalent to the square root of 4 times the square root of 6, which is equivalent to 2 radical 6. So radical 24 is 2 radical 6, and then you're dividing that by 3. Do not be tempted to divide the 6 and 3, because this number up here does not have a value of 6. It has a value of radical 6. And another way to write this term would be to say this number is 2/3 of radical 6. And after I wrote this example, I realized, we went through here and we had to simplify this. My original problem, radical 8, if I did this problem again, radical 8 divided by radical 3. Instead of rationalizing the denominator first, what I could do is rewrite this and simplify the numerator, because that's not simplified. Radical 8 is equivalent to radical 4 times radical 2, which equals 2 radical 2. So now I have a fraction, but I have the radical 3 in the denominator. So I'm going to take 2 radical 2 over radical 3, and I'm going to multiply it by 1, which is going to take the form of radical 3 over radical 3. And when I multiply these two terms, I start with multiplying the coefficients, then I multiply the radicands and keep them under the radical sign. And then in my denominator, radical 3 times radical 3 is 3. So you can see that you will get the same answer regardless of the order. You get the same answer regardless of the order in which you do it. And there you go.